I walked across that graduation stage with my heart pounding, not from nerves, but from hope. Hope that when I looked into the audience, I'd see their faces. My husband, my children, my parents. But there were only 6 empty chairs. I smiled for the camera, but inside something shattered. They promised they'd come. They knew how much it meant. 5 years of sacrifices, late nights and missed moments, all for this day, and yet they chose a barbecue. If you've ever been forgotten by the people you love most, this story is for you, and maybe it's also about you. My name is Rachel Moore, and I am 41 years old. For the past 5 years, I've been living a double life, or maybe triple if you count the one I show to the outside world. By day, I'm a senior financial analyst at a mid-tier firm in downtown Portland, juggling clients, spreadsheets, and quarterly reports. By night, I morph into a grad student, studying for my MBA through a grueling part-time program. And in every space in between, I'm a wife to Ben and a mother to 2 children. Noah, who just turned 14 and has entered the age where his earbuds speak louder than I do. And Emily, my sweet 11-year-old, who bounces between ballet lessons and pre-teen mood swings like a pendulum. I wake up every morning at 5:15 before anyone else in the house has stirred. I prepare breakfast, usually oatmeal or toast, something quick but warm, and pack 2 lunches with handwritten notes that say things like, "Good luck on your test," or "Remember, you're amazing." I kiss Ben on the cheek as he mumbles good morning, already scrolling through his phone. Then I head to the office for a full day of analytical precision, where every decimal point matters and every client call could mean a bonus or a disaster. Most days I leave work, grab a sandwich for dinner and drive straight to the university. My classes run from 6 to 9 p.m. 3 nights a week. On the other nights, I'm buried in textbooks or clacking away on my laptop long after the kids have gone to bed. The house is usually quiet by then, peaceful on the surface, but underneath I can feel the cracks. What most people don't see is the math that never adds up. 40 hours at work, try 50, 3 nights of class. Add in 2 more for studying, a full-time mum, that never clocks out. My life is a spreadsheet full of red numbers, each representing something I've overdrawn. Energy, time, emotional availability. I am not bitter, not exactly. I chose this. I wanted to grow, to rise beyond the invisible ceiling I kept bumping against at work. Get your MBA, they said. You'll have more opportunities. So I did. Or rather, I'm almost done. One final project, one ceremony, one piece of paper away from finally being seen. Or so I thought. But lately, I've felt less like a woman pursuing her dreams and more like a ghost moving through her own life. At work, I'm dependable, but not promotable, yet. At home, I'm present, but not noticed. No one asks how I'm feeling. No one offers to make dinner when I'm buried under final exam prep. My husband Ben means well, I think. He's not cruel, just distracted. Focused on his own world, his work, the kids, his weekend runs with friends. We talk, of course, logistics mostly. Who's picking up Emily? Did you pay the electric bill? Can you get milk on your way home? The kids love me, I know that. But their love is an assumption, not an active expression. They need me when something is missing. Cleats, poster board, a ride, but rarely just to be with me. I'm the glue of the family, invisible until I stop holding everything together. There was a moment last week that still clings to me. I walked into the living room, exhausted, just wanting to sit down for 5 minutes before diving into a final paper. Ben and the kids were on the couch, watching some show and laughing. As I stepped in, Emily glanced up and said, "Mom, can you bring me some juice?" I paused. Just a second. But in that second, no one said, "Hey, how was your day?" No one scooted over to make room. I wasn't entering a shared space. I was entering a role, provider, not participant. That's the thing about being reliable. Eventually, people stop checking in. They assume you'll just keep going like clockwork, like a program. And you do, until the day you don't. 2 weeks ago, I was loading the dishwasher when I noticed Ben's phone buzzing on the counter. He was upstairs with the kids, and I wasn't trying to snoop, at least not intentionally. But the screen lit up with an email subject line I couldn't ignore. Congratulations on your promotion. I froze, hands still wet, staring at the subject line. It was from his company's HR department. I hadn't heard a word about any promotion. Not over dinner, not during the rushed Saturday mornings, not even during one of those sleepy Sunday chats we used to have when the kids were little. I wiped my hands on a towel, still staring at the glowing screen until it dimmed into blackness. That night, as we got ready for bed, I waited for Ben to bring it up. He didn't. Instead, he mumbled something about being tired and turned towards the wall. I lay there next to him, eyes wide open in the dark, wondering when we had stopped telling each other about the important things. I wanted to ask, why didn't you tell me? But the words stuck in my throat. Maybe because deep down I already feared the answer. Maybe because part of me suspected that he hadn't told me. Because he no longer felt like I was part of his world. He used to bounce ideas off me, ask for advice, share office gossip. Lately, even our texts were functional. Pick up Emily at 5 or don't forget Noah's science fair. Not one message about how his day was, let alone a life change as big as a promotion. I told myself I'd bring it up the next night. But the next night came and I was too exhausted after class. And the next night after that, Emily had a meltdown about her math homework. Life kept moving. I kept pushing the question down like everything else. Then came the headache. It started as a dull throb behind my eyes, the kind I've learned to ignore. But this time it didn't go away. It grew louder, yes, louder, like a bass drum pulsing in my skull. I remember standing at the stove, stirring pasta, when the room began to tilt slightly. My vision blurred at the edges. I sat down on the kitchen floor just for a minute, just to breathe. No one noticed. Ben was in the garage fixing a shelf. Noah was upstairs playing video games. Emily was on FaceTime in her room. I sat there, head in my hands, back against the dishwasher, for maybe 10 minutes. When the pasta started to boil over, I forced myself to get up, turn off the burner and finish making dinner. We all sat at the table that night. I served their plates. No one asked why I looked pale. No one noticed I hadn't touched my own food. I tried to say something, to explain how I felt, but Emily was telling a story about school and Ben was scrolling through emails on his phone and I didn't want to interrupt. So I smiled. I nodded. I pretended. Later that night, I lay in the bathtub with the lights off, just letting the steam soak into my bones. The pain was still there, wrapped around my skull like a vice. I thought of the email, the promotion, the silence between us, the way I had collapsed onto the kitchen floor and not one person had seen me. I thought, what if I had passed out? What if I'd fainted or worse? Would they have noticed then? That thought made my chest tighten, not from panic, but from something colder, resentment. I have become the air in this household, necessary, omnipresent, but invisible. And the scariest part, I'm starting to believe they like it that way. That Saturday morning, I finally found a quiet pocket of time, 10 minutes, maybe 15, between laundry loads and Emily's dance drop-off, and I called my mum. I needed to hear her voice, to feel grounded again. Not for advice exactly, but for comfort, for that motherly reassurance I hadn't admitted I craved in years. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, sweetheart, everything okay?" I almost said yes out of habit, but instead I hesitated. Not really, I confessed, my voice quieter than I expected. "I'm just tired, Mum," she chuckled. "Welcome to motherhood, baby." I pushed forward anyway, ignoring the wall already rising in her tone. "No, I mean really tired. Work's insane, school's overwhelming, I barely sleep, and it feels like nobody notices unless something's wrong or undone. I thought things would ease up by now, but..." There was a pause. I thought maybe she was digesting what I said. Maybe she was going to respond with sympathy, or even a story from when she was my age. But then she sighed. "Rachel, honey, every woman feels that way. You're not special. We all deal with stress. That's just life. Don't make it bigger than it is." The words hit like cold water to the face. Dismissive, final. "I'm not trying to make it bigger," I said, more defensive than I meant. "I just thought you'd understand." "I do understand," she replied, her voice growing clipped. That's why I'm telling you, stop whining and push through. You have a house, a job, a family. Count your blessings. I wanted to scream. Count your blessings? Was that supposed to erase the mental exhaustion, the aching loneliness, the sense of being crushed under the weight of invisible expectations? I ended the call not long after that, politely, even though I felt anything but polite. I stared at the phone for a while after, thinking how I'd hoped for a mother but got a lecture. Then, as if the universe wanted to deepen the irony, it rang again. This time, a FaceTime from my brother, Jason. I almost let it go to voicemail. But habit won. I answered. His grinning face filled the screen, with an ocean view behind him that made my stomach clench. "Hey sis," he beamed. "Guess where I am?" I smiled reflexively, though it didn't reach my eyes. Somewhere ridiculous, I'm sure. "Costa Mesa just closed on a beach house, 4 bedrooms, wraparound deck, 10 minutes from the water. Want to see?" He flipped the camera to show glossy floors, designer appliances, a hot tub bubbling in the backyard. Meanwhile, I had mismatched socks, 3 overdue bills, and a headache that still hadn't left since Thursday. "That's nice," I said flatly. "Mum and Dad are already planning a visit in a couple weeks," he added casually. "They want to help us furnish the place." I blinked. "Oh, I didn't realise they were travelling this month." "Yeah, they just booked flights. Mom wants to go antiquing near the marina. You know how she is." I didn't answer. My throat tightened. Jason's smile faltered slightly. "Anyway, how's your MBA thing going?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "My MBA thing is almost done." He nodded like that was sufficient, then launched into a story about a neighbour's corgi and a wine tasting he had booked for next weekend. I set the phone down on the table as he kept talking, putting him on speaker so I could fold a basket of laundry while pretending to be engaged. Mum was flying to help him decorate a beach house. She hadn't visited me in 3 years. Jason got champagne and celebratory trips. I got lectures about gratitude. That evening, I sat on the porch alone, wine in hand, staring into the dusky sky. It was one of those moments where everything inside feels louder than anything outside. I didn't cry. I just sat with the weight of it all. The quiet ache of being a daughter, a sister, a mother, and yet somehow always coming last. The next morning, I was cleaning up Emily's room, something I hadn't done in a while. Normally, I tried to respect her space now that she was getting older, but there was a growing pile of laundry and old snack wrappers tucked between her bed and desk. I figured she wouldn't mind if I tidied up while she was out with Ben and Noah at the farmer's market. As I picked up a stack of coloured pens and glittery stickers from her desk, something slipped between the cracks and hit the floor, a soft, worn notebook with a fabric cover. It was her journal. My first instinct was to place it back without reading, but then I saw the corner of a page sticking out. It was folded, torn slightly, and in her handwriting, loopy big letters, were the words, "Why doesn't Mum like me anymore?" My heart stopped. I sat on the edge of her bed, notebook trembling in my hands, and unfolded the page with care I hadn't known I possessed. What I read next hollowed me out in places I didn't know were still vulnerable. "Sometimes I think Mum forgets I'm here. She's always working or at school or studying. When I ask her stuff, she says, 'Not now.' I get it. She's tired. But I miss her. I miss when we used to paint nails and bake together. Now she's always mad or tired or quiet. I asked Dad if she still likes me, and he said of course, but she doesn't act like she does." There were doodles in the margins, sad faces, a girl sitting alone at a dinner table, a calendar with graduation circled in hearts. I sat there crushed by a weight heavier than work deadlines or final exams, heavier than being ignored by my mother or overshadowed by Jason. This was different. This was the raw, unfiltered ache of a child wondering if she still mattered to her mum. I didn't even realise I was crying until a teardrop blurred the ink. How had I not seen this? How had I been so focused on proving something to the world, to myself, that I hadn't noticed my daughter slipping away from me? That her tiny heart had started keeping score of my absences? I thought of all the nights I told her 5 more minutes as I typed furiously on my laptop, only to forget. The weekends I stayed locked in the home office while Ben took the kids to the park. The way I convinced myself that it was just For now, that later I'd make it up to them, that when I finally graduated, when life settled down, I'd be present again. But kids don't wait for later. They feel the absence now. And Emily, my thoughtful, sensitive, sunshine-hearted girl, had been feeling it long enough to write it down. I placed the journal gently back on her desk, not wanting her to know I had seen it. Not yet. But that evening, when she came home and plopped her backpack down like nothing had happened, I looked at her differently. I watched how she hovered by the doorway of the kitchen, almost asking for attention, but not quite. I turned off the stove mid-simmer and crouched beside her. "Hey," I said softly, "want to help me cook tonight? We could make that pasta you love, with the too much cheese." She blinked, surprised. "Really? Really?" Her face lit up like it hadn't in months. We grated cheese and boiled noodles and burned the garlic toast. We laughed. She told me about a group project at school and how her teacher let her lead the presentation. And for the first time in what felt like ages, I wasn't racing through dinner prep in my head. I wasn't mentally checking off to-do lists. I was with her, just her. Later that night, as I sat in my room reflecting, a question gnawed at me. Was I becoming the very kind of mother I had resented growing up? Distant, too busy, emotionally unavailable. And the scariest part, I didn't know the answer. I started planning my graduation 2 months before the ceremony date was even confirmed. It felt almost silly in a way. Most of the women I knew didn't throw parties for finishing their degrees in their 40s. But this wasn't just a piece of paper to me. This was 5 years of lost weekends, late nights, ignored aches, and missed bedtime stories. This was my comeback, my victory lap, my moment. I printed out the university's email the moment it hit my inbox. Commencement, Saturday, May 21st, 2 p.m. sharp. Each graduate would receive 6 tickets for guests. 6, exactly the number I needed. Ben, Noah, Emily, Mum, Dad, and Jason. I smiled when I realised that. It felt symbolic somehow, like everything was falling into place. That evening, after dinner, I shared the date with the family. "Block out May 21st, I said, trying not to sound too giddy. "I want you all there. I mean it. I've worked so hard for this." Ben nodded immediately. Of course. We wouldn't miss it for anything. Noah grunted his usual teenage assent, eyes still locked on his phone. But Emily bounced up to hug me. "I want to see you wear the hat," she squealed. "Do we get to yell your name?" I laughed. "You absolutely do." That night, I sat on the edge of my bed with my laptop and researched restaurants near the university. Most places were already half booked for graduation weekend, but I found a hidden gem, a cosy, upscale Italian spot with handmade pasta and private dining rooms. It was expensive, too expensive really, but I booked a table for 8 anyway. This was worth it. The next day, I called my parents. "You'll come, right?" I asked, already imagining them in the crowd, clapping as I walked to the stage. There was a pause. "Of course, honey," Mum said finally. "We'll figure it out. Just send us the details." I chose not to dwell on the hesitation. The week after, I booked a hotel for them downtown. 2 nights, paid in full, using points I'd been saving for 3 years. I imagined them walking to the ceremony together, camera in hand, proud of their daughter who had finally done something worthy of attention. Maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment they saw me clearly. Not just the responsible one, not just the backup plan when Jason was too busy. Me, Rachel, woman, mother, graduate. Every night for the next few weeks, I chipped away at the final project for my capstone class and revised my speech. Yes, I'd been chosen to speak during the business school segment. It was a small slot, 2 minutes at most, but still, another moment to own. In the mornings, I glanced at the dress bag hanging in my closet. Inside was a navy blue sheath I'd bought on sale and splurged to have tailored. Emily had said it made me look like a queen. "Everything's coming together," I told Ben one evening as we folded laundry. "The hotel's booked, dinner's reserved, and the speech is nearly done. I can't wait to see the kids' faces when they hear me talk." He smiled, folding a towel. "They're going to be proud of you. We all are." I believed him. And for once I let myself breathe, let myself imagine a moment where I was not holding everything together, but being celebrated for having done so, where I wasn't the invisible glue but the centerpiece, where I wasn't clapping for others, but hearing applause for me. The call came on a Wednesday evening, exactly 10 days before graduation. I had just finished reviewing a slide deck for my final project when my phone buzzed with Jason's name. I answered, half distracted, expecting some casual family chat. "Rachel," he greeted, voice louder than usual. "You're going to love this. We're throwing a massive pool party on the 21st. Got a catering truck, rented out a bounce castle, even hired a DJ. It's going to be epic." I paused, confused. "Wait, the 21st, that's my graduation day." There was a moment of silence on his end, then a dismissive chuckle. "Oh right, your MBA thing. But your ceremony's in the afternoon, right? Ours starts early, like noon. You could swing by after." "Swing by after." My throat went dry. "Jason, I've been planning this for months. I invited everyone. You knew." "I mean, yeah, but the date just worked out. The weather's perfect and the kids will love it. Mum and Dad already said they'd come. They're excited to see the new outdoor kitchen. You should have seen the grill I installed." My heart sank. "Wait, Mum and Dad are going to your party, "Yeah," he said casually. "They already booked the flight. Dad's bringing his famous margarita mix. You know how he gets." I clutched the phone tighter. "So they're skipping my graduation?" Jason's voice lost a sliver of amusement. "Come on, Rach. It's not that big of a deal. You already had a graduation once, right? College. It's not like this is your first." "It's not about firsts," I said quietly. "It's about the fact that this matters to me." He sighed. "Look, it's just a piece of paper. Don't take it so personally." Just a piece of paper. That was the second time someone had said that to me. The first was during my 3rd year of grad school, when I missed Noah's soccer championship because of a final. Ben had used those exact words then too. When I hung up, I felt cold all over. Not angry, not even disappointed, just hollow. That night, I brought it up to Ben. We were sitting on the couch, the kids upstairs. "Jason scheduled a party on the same day as my graduation," I said. He looked up from his laptop. "Seriously?" "Yeah, a whole pool bash. DJ, catering, the works," he whistled. "That sounds elaborate." "He invited everyone, including my parents. They're going." Ben's expression shifted slightly. Part sympathy, part calculation. "Well, maybe we can split the day. Ceremony, then swing by the party." I stared at him. "No, Ben, this is my graduation. One day, one event. I want everyone there," he nodded slowly. "Of course, I just meant the kids might have more fun at the pool." Silence stretched between us. He kept talking, voice measured. "You know Noah. He doesn't sit still well. 3 hours in a hot auditorium. Emily will be bored out of her mind. But if they go to the party..." "Are you seriously suggesting we skip it?" I asked, voice sharper than I intended. "Not skip, just split. I could take them to Jason's for a bit, then we meet you at dinner." The words felt like splinters. They've watched me disappear into a study cave for 5 years. Missed weekends, bedtime stories, movie nights. This is the payoff. The moment I get to show them what it was all for. Ben sighed. "I know. I just don't want them miserable." I stood up. "Then make them understand why this matters." But he didn't say anything more, just closed his laptop and disappeared into the kitchen. That night, as I lay in bed beside a husband who had nothing more to say, I felt it again. The weight, the loneliness, the creeping realization that maybe, deep down, no one saw this moment the way I did. Maybe they never had. Graduation day arrived wrapped in an odd quiet. The kind that sits on your chest like something unfinished. I woke up before anyone else as usual and tiptoed downstairs to make coffee. No balloons, no hand-drawn cards, not even a scribbled note of good luck from the kids. Just silence. But I shook it off. Today was mine. I took extra care getting ready. The navy blue dress, perfectly pressed, felt like armour as I zipped it up. I styled my hair, soft waves framing my face, and applied makeup with a steadiness I hadn't felt in weeks. For once, I didn't skip mascara. For once, I wanted to be seen. By the time I came downstairs, Ben was in the kitchen scrolling through his phone. Noah and Emily were still in pyjamas, arguing over the last toaster waffle. "Are you guys getting ready soon?" I asked, smiling through the tension in my chest. Ben glanced up. "Yeah, I just need to check a couple emails." I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek. "We need to leave in 45 minutes. Don't forget." "I won't," he said. "Promise." I double-checked the speech in my purse, tucked my diploma case voucher into a folder. Then I stepped out the door, expecting Ben and the kids to follow. They didn't. I stood on the front porch, keys in hand, then turned back. "You guys coming?" Ben looked up, slightly startled. "Oh, I thought we were taking separate cars. You've got to be there early, right? We'll meet you." My heart thudded once, hard. "Oh, okay," I said, voice small. He kissed my cheek like it was any other Tuesday. "Good luck, we'll see you there." I drove to campus in silence, gripping the wheel tighter than necessary. The city felt strange, both too loud and too far away, like I was moving through a different layer of the world, one where everything was slightly out of sync. At the university, I parked in the crowded lot, found my check-in table and slipped into my gown. The fabric was stiff, the cap tight on my head. Still, when I looked at myself in the mirror by the auditorium's restroom, I saw someone else entirely. Not a mom, not a wife, not an analyst, just a woman who made it. As we lined up in the hallway, the buzz of energy grew, laughter, families calling names, flashbulbs popping. I turned around, scanning the crowd behind the roped-off entrance. No sign of Ben. No kids. No parents. It was still early. The procession started. My row walked into the massive hall, the swell of music echoing under the arched ceiling. I searched the audience as we passed the reserved seating section. 6 chairs bore my name on a small card tucked into the back, all empty. I kept walking. I found my seat on stage, smiled when it was required, nodded at the right times during the dean's welcome, clapped politely for my peers. All the while my eyes darted back to those 6 chairs, still empty. When my name was called, I rose, walked across the stage, and accepted my diploma case with a firm handshake and a photo flash. The applause was polite, professional, strangers clapping because the programme told them to. I scanned the crowd one last time. No one. Not a single familiar face. I sat back down, the diploma case heavy in my lap, and felt a strange sensation rise in my throat. Not sadness, not even anger. Absence, the kind that you don't fill with words or noise or even people, the kind that presses against your ribs and makes you realise just how deeply you've been waiting for something that was never coming. The ceremony continued around me, like a train I was no longer on. Names called, applause rising and falling in rhythm, a carousel of bright smiles and proud cheers. I sat frozen, eyes locked on the 6 empty seats like they might suddenly fill if I stared hard enough. But they didn't. Out of instinct, or maybe desperation, I pulled my phone from my purse and glanced at the screen, half expecting a missed call or a text from Ben, maybe something like, "Traffic, be there soon." There were no messages. But what I did see was worse, a notification from Instagram. Ben had just posted a photo. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The image was bright, carefree. Jason's backyard decked out in party banners. The pool shimmered in the sunlight, surrounded by colourful towels, drinks and smiling faces. Front and centre, Ben, Noah, Emily, my parents, Jason, laughing, mid-toast, holding paper cups like everything in the world was perfect. The caption read, "Family time, =, best time. Nothing better than weekends together." The timestamp said it was posted 15 minutes ago. 15 minutes ago, while I was walking across that stage alone, they were clinking cups at a pool party, laughing, celebrating, existing in a world where my moment did not exist. My breath caught. I felt it, physically, like a snap inside my chest. My vision blurred, not from tears at first, but from the rush of heat that surged behind my eyes. Betrayal, humiliation, something darker. My hands clenched around my phone. It wasn't just that they didn't come. It was that they chose something else, something easier, something more fun. I had given them a moment that had taken me 5 years to earn, and they traded it for a barbecue. I wanted to scream, to walk out, to find Ben and throw his phone in the pool. But I didn't. I stayed seated, back straight, face composed, because I wasn't going to give the world the satisfaction of seeing me break. Still, the tears pushed harder now, threatening the edge. I wiped them quickly, pretending to fix my cap. I told myself to breathe, just make it to the end, just get outside. When the ceremony finally concluded, we filed out into the sunlight. Graduates hugging families, flashbulbs, confetti. One woman popped a bottle of champagne while her toddler clapped. I stood off to the side, alone. Then a soft voice behind me said, "Excuse me." I turned. A young woman, maybe late 20s, with curly dark hair and glasses, held a small bouquet of grocery store flowers. She looked nervous. "I just wanted to say, congratulations," she said. "You don't know me. We've had a couple classes together, but I always sat in the back." I nodded, unsure how to respond. She continued, voice a little shaky. "I overheard someone mention your name during the ceremony, that you're a mom with 2 kids and you work full-time." I blinked, surprised. "Yeah, that's me." Her face lit up. "That's amazing. I just wanted you to know you inspired me." I almost dropped out twice. But then I'd see you in class, always prepared, always tired, but still present. And I'd think, if she can do this, maybe I can too. She handed me the flowers. "So, thanks." Something cracked inside me then. Not in the way it had earlier, not like a break, but like a release, a gentler unravelling. My throat tightened, and before I could stop them, the tears came, hot, fast, silent. "Thank you," I whispered, barely able to speak. She smiled, gave a quick wave, and disappeared into the crowd. I stood there, flowers in hand, alone, but suddenly not invisible. The moment I stepped into the house, still clutching the slightly crumpled bouquet, the phone rang. Not my cell. Our old landline, the one we barely used anymore except for doctor reminders or school robocalls. I hesitated, then picked up. It was Jason. "Rachel," he said, his voice breathless, "don't freak out. Noah fell. He slipped on the pool deck, landed wrong. I think it's his arm. Ben's taking him to Memorial ER now." I didn't even hang up. I just dropped the receiver and ran. Everything blurred as I sped through traffic. My dress bunched awkwardly beneath me, my heels tossed onto the passenger seat, my cap forgotten somewhere in the back. The sun was too bright, the streets too slow. Every red light was a personal insult. My phone buzzed repeatedly in the cup holder. I didn't check it. Couldn't. When I screeched into the hospital parking lot, I didn't even wait for a full park. I half jogged, barefoot now, through the sliding glass doors, heart thudding like it wanted out. "I'm looking for my son, Noah Moore," I told the receptionist, barely breathing. She pointed towards a hallway. "Bay 7. I moved like I was underwater, pushing through the crowd, my ears ringing. And then I saw them. Ben, my parents, Jason, Emily, all huddled in the narrow room, forming a semicircle around the hospital bed. Noah lay there, pale but alert, his arm wrapped in a temporary splint. He looked smaller than usual, curled slightly on his side, eyes glassy with pain. "Mum," he said when he saw me, "you came." I rushed to his side, brushing hair from his forehead. "Of course I did, baby. How bad is it?" Ben answered. "They think it's a clean fracture. X-rays look straightforward. Doctor said they'll cast it once the swelling goes down." I nodded, still locked onto Noah's face. I kissed his temple, whispered that he was brave, that it would be okay, that I was here now. What I didn't say was what screamed inside me. Where were you when I needed you? I finally looked around the room. My mother clutched a coffee. My father's arm was draped casually around Jason's shoulder. Emily was sitting on the windowsill, legs swinging, completely engrossed in the vending machine snacks someone had given her. No one looked at me like something monumental had just occurred. No mention of the ceremony, no congratulations, no flowers, not even a tired smile. It was like my graduation had never happened. They were all dressed for the party, still in their casual summer outfits, flip-flops, sunglasses perched atop heads. Someone's beach towel peeked out from a tote in the corner. A tube of sunscreen rolled lazily off a chair. My mother caught my eye and smiled softly. "He's lucky it wasn't worse." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Just air. The doctor came in moments later, explained the break again, and reassured us that with proper care, Noah would heal fully in 6 weeks. Ben asked about follow-ups. Jason cracked a joke about bionic arms. I stood there, invisible again, in my navy blue dress and wilting flowers, clutching my handbag like it could anchor me in the room. Eventually, they all began talking among themselves, about traffic, about pool safety, about where to get dinner nearby. And I realised something gutting. They had already moved on. My moment had passed, and no one even noticed it existed. Noah looked up at me, reaching his uninjured hand. I took it, squeezing hard, like it was the only real thing left in the room. The doctor left to prepare Noah's cast, leaving a lull in the conversation. We stood there in the fluorescent-lit bay, awkward in the quiet, the kind that should have held meaning but didn't. Ben broke the silence first. He glanced around the room and smiled, nodding toward Jason and my parents. "Well," he said lightly, "at least we all got to catch up today. It's been a while since we were all together." The words landed like a slap. I blinked. My mouth parted in disbelief. "Catch up?" Ben looked at me, puzzled by my tone. "Yeah. I mean, not the best circumstances, but still. Nice to see everyone." Nice to see everyone. As if this were a reunion. As if this day wasn't supposed to be about something else. As if the only thing that mattered now was that everyone had conveniently gathered over my son's broken arm at a hospital after skipping the most important day of my life. I didn't even feel the tears coming. I just felt the heat. It started in my chest and surged up my throat, a boil that had been simmering for far too long. "I can't do this," I whispered. Ben's brow furrowed. "Do what? This?" I motioned to all of them. This scene, this complete erasure of what today was supposed to be. Jason leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "Rach, now's really not the time." "No," I turned to him. "Because I was wondering when the right time would be. When I'm back to doing your taxes for free. When Mum needs help booking a flight and can't figure out her phone. When Dad needs a ride to his dentist appointment because Jason's busy with wine club." My mum gasped lightly. "Rachel!" "No," I cut in louder. "You don't get to be shocked. Not today. Not after you all chose potato salad and pool games over my graduation." Ben stepped forward, hands raised slightly, like calming a wild animal. "Rachel, I know you're upset, but can we not do this here?" My voice sharpened. "Why not? You weren't there when it mattered, none of you were, so now is as good a time as any." Jason sighed. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I turned to him. "Because 5 years of missed birthdays, holidays, date nights, family weekends, that wasn't drama. That was me sacrificing every damn thing I had so I could walk across that stage. And when I finally did, you were grilling hot dogs." My father finally spoke, his voice stern. "It's not fair to blame everyone. Life happens." I laughed, a bitter short sound. "No, what happens is people make choices. You all made yours." I looked at each of them then, really looked. My mother, who once told me I was too serious. My father, who never missed Jason's baseball games, but forgot my debate championship. My brother, the golden boy, and Ben, my husband, who had once promised to be my partner in everything and now stood blinking like he didn't know who I was. "I am not a background character in this family," I said, my voice low but clear. "I am not the afterthought. I am not the one who just keeps going while you all celebrate each other." No one spoke. Even the hum of the hallway outside seemed to pause. Noah looked at me then, eyes wide, not in fear but in recognition. Like maybe, just maybe, he was seeing me differently. Like he understood this wasn't about yelling. This was about breaking the silence I'd worn like a second skin. The nurse returned a moment later with casting supplies. I stepped aside, giving her room, but my hands still trembled, not from rage, but from release. For the first time in years I had said it, out loud, and they heard me. I didn't pack much, just a small carry-on with a few changes of clothes, my laptop, a pair of flats, and the journal I'd started months ago but barely written in. The decision to leave wasn't premeditated, it was instinctual. Like some invisible tether had finally snapped, and I couldn't breathe inside my own house anymore. I told Ben the same night. "I'm staying at the hotel downtown for a few days," I said, as I folded a pair of jeans into my bag. My voice was level, but my hands trembled. Ben stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're leaving?" "I'm not abandoning anyone," I clarified. "I just need space." "For what?" I zipped the bag. To think, to hear myself again. He didn't try to stop me. That might have hurt more than if he had argued. He just nodded slowly, like he had known this was coming and hoped ignoring it might make it disappear. The hotel room was the one I'd reserved for my parents. King bed, city view, complimentary breakfast. I checked in using my maiden name and avoided eye contact with the clerk. When I entered the room, I locked the door behind me and let out a breath I didn't realise I'd been holding for years. The silence was different than at home. This silence didn't feel like neglect. It felt like peace. I placed the bag by the window, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the skyline. The buildings shimmered in the early evening sun, glowing orange and gold, like the city was trying to remind me that it was still beautiful, even when my world felt like it had collapsed. Ben texted an hour later. Ben, let me know when you settle in. I just want to make sure you're safe. I stared at the message, a thumb hovering over the screen. Then I turned the phone face down. That night I didn't cry, I thought I would, but there was a strange stillness in my chest, a numbness born not of shock, but of sheer emotional depletion. I didn't have room for more sadness, I was full. The next morning I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains. No alarm, no kid barging in asking where their cleats were, no mental checklist waiting on my nightstand. Just silence. I brewed coffee from the tiny hotel pod machine and sipped it slowly, seated at the desk overlooking the city. For the first time in months, I opened my journal and wrote, I spent 5 years climbing a mountain I thought would lead to joy. Turns out the view is only as beautiful as the people who climb with you, and mine never even showed up. I visited Noah that afternoon. He was home from the hospital, lounging on the couch with a blanket over his lap and his cast propped up on a pillow. Emily greeted me with a cautious hug, her eyes darting between me and Ben. Ben didn't say much, just a nod. I kept my visit brief, helping Noah adjust his sling, listening to Emily chatter about a new song she was obsessed with, then saying goodbye before dinner. Ben texted that night. Ben, Noah keeps asking about you. He misses you, so do I. I didn't answer. Day 2 was similar. I brought Noah a comic book, helped him practice signing his name with his left hand, and showed Emily how to use the slow cooker she'd become curious about. I avoided eye contact with Ben. He didn't push. But the texts kept coming. Ben, are you eating? Ben, we can talk. Just you and me. Ben, I get it. I really do. I just didn't realise it had gotten this bad. Every one of them stung in its own way. Not because they were cruel, but because they came too late. On the 3rd day, I walked to a small bookstore a few blocks from the hotel. I wandered the aisles aimlessly, letting my fingers trace over covers and titles. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just permission to exist in a place where no one expected anything from me. That night, I received a text from Noah. Noah. Hey, Mum. I think I was mean. I didn't mean to be. You looked really pretty at graduation. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried, not from pain this time, but from something softer. It was the first acknowledgement, the first thread of recognition. I replied, Me. Thank you, sweetheart. That means more to me than you know. I love you. Emily texted a meme that made no sense to me, followed by, Can I come stay with you at the hotel? I laughed through tears. By the 4th day, Ben had stopped texting hourly. I think he realised I wasn't ignoring him. I was recalibrating, finding my footing on solid ground for the first time in years. That evening I sat on the hotel bed, wrapped in a robe, dinner tray on my lap, and finally answered his message. Me, I'm okay, I'm thinking, I'll visit tomorrow. I'm not ready to talk about everything yet. His reply came quickly. Ben, take your time. I'll be here. I believed him. For the first time in a long time, I also believed in myself. It was the 5th night. I had begun to memorise the sounds of the hotel room, how the AC unit clicked just before blowing cold air, the creak of the armchair near the window, the way the water in the faucet ran slightly warm no matter how far I turned the cold knob. These were small, insignificant things, but they were mine. The loneliness hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted. It no longer felt like abandonment. It felt like space to think, to feel, to not perform. I hadn't cooked in 5 days. I hadn't picked up anyone's socks, scheduled appointments, or broken up sibling arguments. No one had called my name through a closed door. No one had asked what was for dinner before I even finished breakfast. It was the first time in over a decade that I wasn't responsible for anyone but myself. And the air tasted different because of it. Cleaner, sharper, like oxygen finally reaching parts of me I'd forgotten existed. Around 7 p.m, there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I looked through the peephole and saw a familiar face. Julia, my closest friend from work. I hadn't seen her since before the graduation ceremony. We had exchanged a few texts, but I'd told her I needed time. She stood there now, with a small paper bag in one hand and a bottle of white wine in the other. "Surprise," she said softly when I opened the door. I smiled for what felt like the first time that day. "You have impeccable timing." We hugged and she stepped inside, taking in the room without judgment. "I brought food," she said, holding up the bag. "Not hotel food, real food." We sat by the window, eating pasta from the Italian place near our office. I told her everything, about the empty chairs, the Instagram post, the hospital, the silence. She listened without interrupting, just refilling my glass when it dipped too low. After dinner, she reached into her tote and handed me a slim folder. "I know this might not be the right time," she said, "but I think you should see this." Inside was a job posting, Senior Strategic Analyst, a position that reported directly to the VP of Operations, a huge step up, one I never thought I'd be ready for. I looked at her, stunned. "Is this internal?" She nodded. "They haven't posted it yet, but I heard whispers. You're exactly who they need, Rachel. You've already been doing half the work unofficially. Now you just have the credentials to back it." Something inside me stirred, a flicker, a pulse of old ambition. Not desperation, not obligation. Desire. "I don't know," I said slowly. "The kids, the timing." Julia cut me off gently. "You're allowed to want more. That doesn't make you a bad mom. It makes you a whole person." I stared at the job description again. It was all there. The qualifications, the responsibilities, the salary. But most importantly, it was something that felt like mine. Not a compromise, not a side goal. A real goal. After Julia left, I sat on the bed with my laptop open. The application portal stared back at me. I didn't hesitate. I uploaded my resume, wrote a cover letter with fingers that moved faster than I could think, and hit submit before I could talk myself out of it. The moment I clicked send, I leaned back against the headboard, eyes wide, pulse racing. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting to life, I was choosing it. On the 8th morning, I packed my bag slowly. There was no dramatic music playing in the background, no cinematic swell of resolution, just the muted sound of a city waking up beyond the glass and the soft whisper of zippers closing. I wasn't returning home defeated. I was returning different. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. Chipped paint on the mailbox, Emily's bike leaned against the porch, a flower pot tipped over from last night's wind. But something had shifted in me. I wasn't walking into a battlefield, I was walking into negotiations. Ben opened the door before I knocked. He looked exhausted, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, but he offered a tentative smile. "Hey." "Hey," I replied. We stood there for a beat too long, then he stepped aside to let me in. The house smelled like laundry and lemon cleaner, a sign, perhaps, of effort. The kids weren't home yet. They were still at school. That was intentional. I had texted Ben earlier that morning and asked him to make sure the house was quiet when I arrived. I needed a conversation with him first. We sat in the kitchen, the same table where so many arguments, dinners, and homework sessions had taken place. I looked at him, not as the man I married, but as the person I needed to share life with, if this was going to work. "I'm not going to pretend like this week didn't change something," I began. "It did, and I can't go back to the way things were." Ben nodded. "I know. I need a partner, Ben. Not just in name. I need someone who sees me, respects my time, supports my goals, and not just with words, but with action." "I haven't done that," he admitted quietly. "No, you haven't. And I enabled that for a long time. I kept carrying everything. Emotional labour, housework, the kids' schedules, my career, school. I let myself become invisible because I thought that was what good mothers do. But I'm not doing that anymore. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "What do you need from me?" I took a breath. "We're going to reassign house responsibilities fairly. Chores, appointments, school follow-ups, not helping me, sharing the load. And emotionally, I need you to check in, to care, to show up when it counts, not after." He nodded, eyes glassy. "Okay." "This isn't a threat," I clarified, "but it is a boundary. If I feel like I'm alone in this again, I won't stay silent, and I won't stay here." He didn't flinch. "You shouldn't have to." There was a long silence. Not heavy, just real. We heard the front door open. Backpacks hit the floor. Laughter drifted from the hallway. "They're home," I said. Ben stood. "Do you want to talk to them together?" "Yes," I replied. "Let's do it now." We called Noah and Emily into the living room. They came hesitantly, like they weren't sure what kind of moment this would be. Emily clutched the hem of her hoodie. Noah sat on the edge of the couch, not meeting my eyes. I didn't waste time. "I know this past week felt different," I started, "and maybe even scary, but I needed space. I needed to think about how we treat each other in this family, what we value, what we ignore." The kids were silent, listening. "I felt very alone on graduation day," I continued, "and I think some of you didn't realise how deeply that hurt." Noah looked up first. "I'm sorry, Mum, I didn't get it. I thought it was just a boring ceremony. But now I see it was important." Emily moved closer, curling next to me on the couch. "I'm sorry too. I thought we'd go to the party and then see you later. I didn't know you'd be so sad." I hugged them both tight. It wasn't just sadness, it was disappointment. But I also know I haven't always been present either. I've been working so hard for our future that I sometimes missed the present. Noah whispered. I think we all messed up a little. Ben sat across from us, quiet. "I want us to do better," I said, voice steady. "Not perfect, but better. That means talking, being honest, being there for each other." They both nodded. Emily sniffled and wiped her nose on her sleeve. Later that evening, we created a family chart. Not just chores, but check-ins, emotional labour, small things that mattered. Noah volunteered to manage the trash and yard work when his arm healed. Emily asked if she could cook one night a week, something simple. Ben offered to handle all medical appointments and take the lead on meal planning for weekdays. It wasn't a revolution, but it was a beginning. As I watched my family take small steps towards balance, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. A month passed. Life didn't transform overnight, but it did begin to shift. There was more eye contact, more thank yous, more awareness. The family calendar was updated religiously. Emily made spaghetti from a TikTok recipe she'd seen, and Noah began reminding Ben about appointments instead of me doing it by default. Ben still stumbled now and then. Old habits die hard. But he listened when I spoke, and more importantly, he remembered, work also changed. 3 weeks after submitting the application, I received an email from HR. I had made it to the final round for the Senior Strategic Analyst role. 2 interviews, 1 presentation, and 1 heart-pounding elevator ride later, I got the job. A private office, a raise that finally reflected my value, and more control over my schedule. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was chasing balance, I was building it. Then, just after my first week in the new role, I received an invitation I didn't expect. It was from Jason. The subject line, "No pool, no excuses, come celebrate, properly this time." I stared at the email for a long time before opening it. He had rented out a small space at a wine bar downtown, a cosy venue with a terrace, string lights and a surprisingly thoughtful message in the invite. For Rachel, who climbed the mountain while the rest of us barely noticed she was scaling it. It was signed by him and our parents. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. I wrestled with it for days, but in the end I chose to attend. When I walked into the venue, I didn't expect much, maybe a few awkward toasts, some snacks and polite smiles. But what I found stopped me in my tracks. My team from work was there, Julia, a few of my classmates from the MBA programme, even Professor Daniels, the one who once told me, "You think like an executive." And standing near the bar were my parents. My mother wore the navy scarf I'd given her last Christmas, the one she never acknowledged. My father held a drink and looked genuinely, if awkwardly, proud. When they saw me, they smiled in unison. Jason appeared at my side, holding a glass of white wine. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, "and probably a few more after that." I raised an eyebrow. "Just a few?" He laughed, then grew serious. "I was an ass. I minimised your work, your effort, your success. That barbecue, that was selfish. This, tonight, is my way of saying I finally get it, or at least I'm trying to." Before I could respond, he stepped aside and gestured to the back wall. I turned. There, framed on an easel, was a photo I'd never seen. It was me, in my cap and gown, standing alone on the lawn outside the university after the ceremony. My expression was a blend of tired, hopeful, and heartbroken. The backdrop, a blurred crowd of other graduates with their families. Beneath the photo was a small plaque that read, "She stood alone and still stood tall." I felt my chest tighten. My mother approached, placing a hand on my arm. "We had it printed from the university photographer," she said softly. "It was long overdue. We wanted you to know we're proud of you." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you." "No," she replied, "thank you for not giving up on all of us." The night unfolded gently. People shared stories. Julia gave a speech that made me cry, laugh. Ben, who'd arrived late after picking up the kids from school, kissed my cheek and handed me a card from Noah and Emily. Inside they had drawn a comic strip of me, in a superhero cape, standing on a pile of books labelled "Mom, the Real Boss." It was imperfect. It didn't erase the pain of that empty row of chairs, but it added something back, something real. Later that week, I hung my diploma on the wall of my new office. Not in a corner, not behind a plant, front and centre. I sat in my new chair, leaned back and looked at it. 5 years of sacrifice, of invisible labour, of nights spent wondering if I was losing everyone or finding myself. And now I finally knew the answer. I chose myself, and that was enough.